Boo Radley. For Scout, Jem, and Dill, that name carried both fear and fascination. The house he lived in stood like a secret at the end of their street. Gray paint peeling off the walls, the yard shadowed by old oaks, and a gate that creaked even when no one touched it. People in Maycomb said strange things about the Radleys. They said Boo was a monster, 6.5 feet tall, with blood-stained hands and a wild laugh that echoed through the night. But the truth was, nobody had seen him in years. Nobody really knew him at all. To the children, Boo was an adventure waiting to happen. On lazy afternoons, they would invent new games centered around him. Dill's imagination was endless. He described Boo as a pale creature who crept out at night to peer into windows and eat raw squirrels. Scout would listen, half frightened, half thrilled. And Jem, always the brave one, would swear that one day he'd make Boo Radley step outside. That summer became their season of make-believe. They built a whole play they called The Life and Times of Boo Radley. Jem would act as Boo, hiding under the porch, while Dill played the role of Mr. Radley. Scout, sometimes the victim, sometimes the witness, narrated their dramas with serious expression, unaware that an unseen audience might have been watching from behind those shutters. Atticus, their father, didn't like it. When he found out what they were doing, he told them gently but firmly to stop tormenting the Radleys. He reminded them that Boo was a real person, with a right to his privacy. Scout felt ashamed. She hadn't thought of Boo that way, as someone with feelings. But childhood curiosity is stronger than guilt. The fascination didn't fade. It just hid itself under quieter games and secret plans. One afternoon, Dill came up with an idea. He wanted to send Boo a note, just to say hello, maybe get him to come out. They wrote a short message and tried to stick it through the window with a fishing pole. But Atticus caught them in the act. His voice wasn't angry, only disappointed. He told them once more to stop bothering that man, and his words carried more weight than any scolding. Jem didn't argue this time. He just nodded. But the mystery remained unsolved. As the summer deepened, strange things began to happen. Jem and Scout started finding more items in the knothole of that old oak tree near the Radley place. Small treasures, simple but meaningful. A spelling medal, a broken watch, a pair of carved soap figures that looked exactly like them. It was as if someone, hidden from the world, was quietly reaching out. Scout began to believe it was Boo Radley. She liked to imagine him sitting inside his dark house, smiling softly as he left those little gifts, watching them from the shadows. But just when they had begun to look forward to what they'd find next, it all stopped. One morning, Jem discovered the knothole filled with gray cement. When he asked Mr. Nathan Radley, Boo's brother, why he had done that, Nathan said the tree was dying. But when Atticus looked at it later, he said the tree was perfectly healthy. Jem didn't say anything. He stood there for a long time, staring at the hardened cement as if he had lost something he couldn't explain. The world outside the Radley house continued to move in slow circles. Scout went to school, Jem grew taller and quieter, and Atticus became busier with his work. But underneath the rhythm of everyday life, something invisible connected the Finch children to the man behind those shutters. Boo Radley had never spoken a word to them, yet somehow he had begun to change how they saw the world. That winter, something happened that made Maycomb feel different. It snowed. The first snow Scout had ever seen. The children were so excited they tried to build a snowman, mixing snow and dirt to make it stand tall. They laughed and played, never realizing that this unusual season was a sign that the world around them was shifting. One night, long after they had gone to bed, Scout awoke to the smell of smoke. The house of their neighbor, Miss Maudie, was on fire. People rushed into the street as flames lit up the night sky. Atticus carried out Maudie's furniture while the children stood shivering in the cold. In the chaos, Scout didn't notice someone draping a clampet on her shoulders. Only when the fire was out did Atticus point it out. Jem and Scout had no idea where it came from. They realized later Boo Radley had come out of his house that night and placed the blanket on Scout without anyone noticing it. The thought sent a quiet shiver through her. He wasn't the monster from their stories. He was something entirely different. A silent, unseen guardian. Jem didn't sleep that night. The pieces were coming together in his mind. The gifts in the tree, the blanket on Scout, the small acts of kindness that never needed to be seen or thanked. Boo Radley wasn't a ghost. He was human, just hidden away from a world that had never been kind to him. He cried softly, not from fear, but from understanding. For the first time, he felt the sadness of a world where people like Boo were misunderstood. Scout didn't yet understand the depth of what had happened. To her, Boo was still mysterious, but she was beginning to sense that things in Maycomb were not always as they seemed. The stories grown-ups told weren't always true. Sometimes they were just reflections of their fears. As the cold winter days faded, life returned to its slow, warm rhythm. The fire was over, the snow melted, and Maycomb went back to its usual gossip. But inside the Finch children, something had changed. They were starting to see that courage and kindness often lived in silence. The man behind the shutters had never spoken to them, yet through small gestures he had taught them more about humanity than anyone else. Years later, Scout would remember that blanket. She would remember how it felt, the quiet warmth of it on her shoulders that night, and she would think of Boo Radley, the man everyone feared but who never harmed a soul. The man who reached out, not with words, but with quiet compassion. Maycomb is full of stories, some loud, some whispered. But the story of Boo Radley was the one that taught Scout and Jem that not everything frightening is evil, and not everything good is visible. Sometimes goodness hides in the dark, waiting for someone brave enough to see it.